How do you take something as messy and, well, human as political opinion and boil it down to a single, clear number? I mean, it sounds kind of impossible, right? But what if you could? What if there was a system to actually measure support and opposition, not just based on a gut feeling, but with real data?
Well, let's dive into exactly that. The framework we're going to use is called the ASEC Model, and today we're breaking down a really crucial piece of it, the government element. Together, we're going to build a tool, step by step, that does exactly what I just described. It quantifies the political landscape.
So here's our game plan. First, we'll talk about why we even need to turn politics into numbers. Then, we'll get into the how. That's reading the signs of support or opposition and then figuring out the power behind those signs. After that, we'll put it all together to calculate an actual score, and finally, we'll see how that score can change as the situation evolves.
Okay, so why do this? Why bother turning messy politics into a clean number? Well, for a lot of big projects or companies, their success hinges on something called a social license to operate. Now, this isn't a piece of paper. It's the real ongoing acceptance you get from stakeholders, the community and the government. And to earn that, you just can't rely on guesswork. You need a clear map of who's with you and who's against you. That's exactly what this system gives us.
Now, this is so important to get. The political world isn't static, right? An opponent today could be an ally tomorrow. That's why we map everyone out twice. Once when tensions are running high, we call that conflict escalation, and then again when people are starting to work things out, during conflict resolution.
So let's get into our first step. Before we can assign any numbers, we have to figure out where everyone stands. And this means listening not just to what people say, but also digging a little deeper to understand what they really want.
This iceberg image is the perfect way to think about it. A stakeholder's position is what you see. It's the public statement, the thing they're demanding. But way down below the surface, that's their true interest, the core needs, the fears, the hopes that are actually driving everything.
Let me give you a real-world example. A mayor might stand up and say, no to mining, yes to agriculture. Okay, that's their position. Clear enough. But what's their underlying interest? They're probably not just anti-mining for the sake of it. They're pro-community. They want good jobs, they want sustainable development, and a healthy environment. See the difference? If you want to find a solution, you have to address those interests, not just argue about the position.
So, how do we translate all this into our model? It's actually pretty simple. We use signs. If a stakeholder is against the company, we give them a negative sign. If they're in favor, a positive sign. And if they're just neutral, they get a 0. Easy.
This really simple coding gives us the very first piece of our puzzle, just the basic direction of the political will. Are they for you or are they against you?
And the rule for those neutral folks is super straightforward. Anyone with a neutral position gets a 0. It doesn't matter one bit how powerful they are. For this calculation, their score is 0, and they don't even factor into the final average. For our purposes, they're sitting on the sidelines.
Okay, so we've got the direction, positive, negative, or neutral. But come on, we all know that not all opinions carry the same weight, right? What a local mayor says is different from what a national president says. And that brings us to our second step, valuing the power.
Our model assigns a really clear value based on political hierarchy. As you can see, the national government, they get the highest value, a 3. The regional government gets a 2, and the local government gets a 1. And the company itself, it acts as our baseline, with a value of 0.
So the logic here is just simple. This value reflects influence. It's a system that weights the opinions we're measuring. A score of 3 just carries more weight in our calculation than a score of 1. It makes perfect sense.
All right, now for the magic. We've got the signs, which tell us the direction of their will, and we have the values, which tell us the weight of their power. It is time to put them together to calculate one single, really meaningful number, the government score.
So let's walk through a practical example. Imagine a project is in a really tough spot. Tensions are high, there's a lot of local opposition. This is our conflict escalation scenario.
Here's the situation. We have 2 local governments that are against the project, so their position is negative. But the regional and national governments are in favor, so their positions are positive.
So how do we get the score? It's actually just an average. The local level is against, so their combined score is -1. The regional level is in favor, so that's a +2, and the national level is also in favor, so that's a +3. So we add those 3 scores up, -1, +2, +3, and then we divide by the number of levels, which is 3.
And what we get is a score of 1.3. That number right there now represents the entire government's position during this conflict. It's positive, which is good, but it's not super high, and that's because that local opposition is pulling the average down.
But what happens when things start to get better? Let's say the company does the hard work. They start addressing those underlying interests, and they build some trust. We're now moving from conflict toward resolution.
Now look at the new map. The regional and national guys are still on board. But here's the big change. The two local governments have flipped. They are now in favor of the company. Their power value is still 1, but now it's a positive 1.
That one little change completely alters our calculation. Now the local governments are in favor, so their score is +1. The regional is still +2, and the national is +3. So we add them all up, 1 + 2 + 3, and divide by 3. So what do we get this time?
Our new score is 2, a nice, solid 2. It's a clear, quantifiable jump, and it reflects this new consensus that's been built across all levels of government.
So let's put them side by side. We went from a score of 1.3 during the conflict, all the way up to 2 during the resolution phase. This really shows you the power of the model. It's not just a feeling that things got better. We have a number that proves it. And that higher score, it signals stronger government alignment, and it's a huge indicator that the company is on the right track to earning that social license to operate.
So, we've done it. We've successfully quantified the will of the government. But you know, the government is only one piece of the puzzle, which leaves us with a really important question. How do we take this same thinking and apply it to measure the power and position of the community itself?